Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Directors regular meeting for the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. We are hereby called to order. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have our Metro Cable announcement. Open session meeting is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, November 16th at 2 p.m. and Monday, November 18th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. We now come to the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Before I request a consent motion, I would like to announce that action item number 1, the contract approval for fuel and lubricant procurement, has been removed from the agenda, and we will proceed with that planned on the first meeting in December. All right, so with that, I'll entertain a motion for consent.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
First and seconded, please call the roll.
Dr. Sailors. Aye. Gould.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
And Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to presentation items. Our first one, sure you want to still go first? You all right with it? Okay, good. Presentation item number 1, FY 17-18 Achievements from the Government Finance Officers Association. Welcome to the podium, Amanda Thomas, CFO, Metro Fire.
Thank you. And good evening, directors, Chief Harms. It is my honor this evening to present 2 awards received by the district from the Government Finance Officers Association for our fiscal year 2017-18 financial reporting. So for the 5th year in a row, the district has received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for its fiscal year 17-18 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR, as I know you all know it as. And additionally, the GFOA has recognized the district with its award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting for the district's first ever Community Annual Report, which, as I know you know, is an abbreviated version of the CAFR intended for use by the general public. So it looks like this, and there's also a smaller version of it, which you may be familiar with. Both achievements reflect the commitment of the board and executive staff to transparency and professional excellence, and both would not have been possible without the dedication and skill of the district's professional staff, with all divisions contributing in some way to the content of these reports. In particular, I'd like to recognize the committed and hardworking staff in the finance division who truly care about the service that the district provides to the public and understand that everything they do, even reporting on the district's finances, ultimately has some impact on that. This year especially, I'd like to recognize Ron Empedrad and Marie Jones, who is in the audience, who both deserve a lot of credit for spearheading the effort to produce the first ever community annual report, and I know that they are both now working on the second one, so hopefully you can look forward to a presentation on next year's awards. With that, I will show you what the awards look like. So, this is the award for the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. So you can see we've got 5 medallions there and some space for someone in the future. And then this is the award for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting. So we've got one medallion on that one and more to come. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions, comments.
Comments, questions? It's a round of applause for sure. comments. I need to let you know that those community reports have been flying off the shelf in my district. Everyone loves them. It's informative, easily read, a lot of information in a very logical presentation. Super, super popular with my community. Thank you very much. Right, any other, you more?
Thank you. No, just thank you.
Give me some more of those awards, yeah. Thank you, CFO Thomas. All right, our second presentation item is Advanced Life Support Ambulance Service RFP process. We have Mark Jones.
Not quite the fanfare Amanda got, but they do hard work over there in finance. So. Good evening, directors. I'm Mark Jones, the Logistics and Purchasing Manager for the district. Tonight I want to present to you the process we use to select an ALS ambulance service provider to help augment the 911 service that Metro Fire is responsible for. I'm going to first start off by letting Chief Harms say a few words. Chief?
Thank you, Mark. Directors, the presentation tonight I think is really timely. In October and the 1st of November, we had 20 meetings with the membership, the chief's forums. Consistently in those meetings, one of the items that came up was the workload on our medics or on our ambulances. What are we looking at? What are some of the plans as we move forward? And the expectation that our call volume will continue to get larger and larger. The transport times, the wall time at the hospital. So Mark and Brian bringing this forward I think is important as we look forward to a new RFP. Not only the surge protection that we have on the streets today, but as we move forward, having additional options or flexibility that's built into the contract, that as we see the demand on services rise during certain times, is that we're able to respond to those rises by putting either additional units on the street or we look at the dispatching portions of it. The flexibility on specialty events, all of those things being able to build into it, which gives us as a district more options or more tools in our toolbox for moving forward. Again, I want to thank Chief Shannon and Mark Jones for really what they do every day on the purchasing side of it and keeping the logistical side of the district moving forward. And I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Chief. So when the purchasing division develops a RFP, we start with a scope of services. That comes from the subject matter experts, so we've been drafting the scope with the district EMS staff. The purchasing staff then edits the draft for scope completeness, and during this process, it's not uncommon to send the draft back and forth many times between purchasing and EMS until the scope of services is completely understood and captures the intent of what the district is seeking. During this RFP development, EMS is responsible for composing the introduction, listing any minimum qualifications, and any other information they would like to see in the proposer's statement of qualifications. Evaluation criteria is listed in the proposal document, which corresponds with the evaluation forms that staff will use to review the proposals. Once completed, purchasing imports the scope into a request for proposal document. Included in the RFP will be the actual service agreement that the successful proposer will be required to execute with the district. Purchasing will send the completed RFP draft to all internal parties for review and approval. Once approved, the draft is sent to legal for review. And once legal reviews it and is approved by all, we release it for publication. We'll make a public notification of this bid on our district website and direct potential proposers to an internet site called Public Purchase. This website is where the County of Sacramento publicizes all of their bids, and we do as well. I'm technically challenged, so there you go. This is a website well known in the procurement world that handles only government bids and for service and equipment. Any questions and answers, amendments, or additional addenda will also get uploaded to this website, so anyone reviewing the proposal documents will have access to all updated information. We'll be reaching out to all ambulance associations in California, as well as 30-plus ambulance companies, and personally email a copy of the proposal to them. Here's our tentative timeline today. The proposal will be published for 1 month starting December 9th. Proposers are asked to notify the purchasing manager of their intent to submit a proposal in order to personally get notified of any amendments or addenda to the document. We may receive questions about either the RFP process or about items in the scope, so we have a deadline of December 16th for proposers to submit their questions. The proposal document states to submit any questions to the purchasing manager by email. Proposers are prohibited from communicating with any district employee other than the purchasing manager listed in the RFP. Only direct communication documented via email will be considered valid. All verbal communication will not be binding. Purchasing will compile any questions regarding the RFP process or the scope of services and send them to internal staff for answers. Answers to all the questions will be sent to any proposers that submitted a question, and additionally, the questions and answers will be posted on the public purchase website. This information will go out no later than December 20th. We just want to make sure that all potential proposers have the same information. The deadline to submit a proposal will be January 10th. A public proposal opening will be that same day, and purchasing will document who submitted a proposal and their unit hour cost. Internal staff will notify purchasing with the names of the evaluators. Purchasing sends out conflict of interest forms and the rules of engagement for reviewing the proposals to the evaluators. Once the forms are signed and returned, a copy of each proposal submission along with an evaluation form will be given to each evaluator so they can begin their independent proposal evaluations. A first evaluation of the proposals will be for minimum qualifications that are listed in the RFP, that will be listed in the RFP. If a proposal does not meet this first round of minimum qualifications, that proposal will not move forward in the process for evaluation. The district has determined certain criteria that will be evaluated, and this directly relates to our district priorities as well as mandated Sacramento County Emergency Medical Services Agency standards. A weight is determined ahead of time for each of the criteria on the evaluation form that relate to the district's priorities. These weights are not given out to the proposers ahead of time because we want as much detail possible on all the information requested in the RFP. Evaluators review the proposals individually for 2 weeks and come back together on January 31st for a group review facilitated by purchasing. All scores are tabulated to come up with a rank. Proposals are ranked depending on how they score in the criteria. Representatives from the top-ranked proposals will be invited to oral interviews. Oral interviews will take place the week of February 10th. All invited proposers will have the same general questions to answer. The same evaluators will be present for the oral interviews along with the purchasing staff. The interview will give the proposers a chance to tell us about their company and why they would be the best fit for our operation. And each proposer will be given the same amount of time to make their presentation. Proposal scores will be tabulated and sent to Chief Shannon and the executive staff for review. Once reviewed and approved, the proposer with the top-ranked proposal score will be notified by purchasing of our intent to award pending board approval. Any unit hour cost negotiations between the top-ranked proposal representatives and district staff will take place the week of February 10th. If a unit hour cost is agreed upon by both parties, the proposal will be recommended to the board. If both parties in good faith are not able to come to an agreement on unit hour cost, then the district and that proposal will be released without further obligations other than surviving obligations regarding confidentiality. And the district may then enter into negotiations with the next ranked proposal, and so on until the unit hour cost is agreed upon. Once an agreement is made on the unit hour cost, staff will make a board presentation on February 27th with the details of the proposal and their recommendation of the proposer that best meets the needs of the district and the service provided to the public. Then on March 12th, staff again will bring to the board as an action item the intent to award the contract to the recommended proposal, seeking board approval at that meeting. So here's a recap of the process real quick. We developed the RFP. We're doing that right now. Once that's approved, we'll publish it on December 9th. The proposers have until December 16th to submit questions to us. We'll respond to those questions by December 20th. January 10th is the deadline to submit a proposal. We're going to evaluate the proposals between the 11th and the 30th of January, and then they'll come together the 31st of January for a group meeting. Interviews will be the week of February 10th. And if any negotiations are needing, that will start the week of February 17th. We'll make our selection, we'll present our selection to the board at the February 27th meeting, and then we'll ask for your approval to award on March 12th. And just one last bit of information that I want to leave with you. We adhere to our board-approved purchasing policy, and the elements of our policy are in line with the purchasing policy of the County of Sacramento. In the last 4 years, the board has approved 47 formal procurements that staff has recommended. Of these 47, 15 have been formal proposal submissions that were evaluated not just on price, as a formal bid would be, or as a single source, but on other criteria taken into consideration to select a vendor that would best meet the needs of the district and ultimately to provide the best service to the public. All 15 of these formal proposals followed the same basic process that I've just outlined to you. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Chief Shannon, do you have additional comments?
Nope.
All right, well, we have two gentlemen at the podium ready for questions or to receive further comments from members of the board. Director Gould?
I have a few, as you can imagine, since I was pretty involved in the last go-around. I'm just going to rapidly fire these at you. Don't necessarily need an answer right off the podium. Some may require some investigation. What level of inter-rater reliability will you set, and who will monitor that inter-rater reliability? The next piece is, will there be a scoring rubric provided to the individuals that are proposing? Is that going to be a rubric for both the proposal and the interviews? So those rubrics, will they be developed? Are they developed? And will they be provided to the proposal parties prior to that event? So that'd be the first thing that I'd like to get. Maybe you don't have a response right now, but like to get that done.
I can respond to that one,
Okay.
Director, if you'd like to. On all of our procurements that Metro Fire does, excuse me, we do not release what weighted scores we are on them, if that's what you were talking about.
Well, you can weight a rubric or you cannot weight a rubric. It's up to you. But what I'm hearing again, similar to last time, is that we're going to ask somebody to make a proposal based on certain criteria.
Which is
But we
listed.
are not going to tell them how we're going to measure their response. So if you weight it, and if you're not sharing it with them, it's basically they don't have an idea. You're just saying, give us your best shot in all these different areas.
That's correct.
So everything's weighted the exact same. Because if one item is weighted more than the other ones, you would want them to then go into more depth, spend more time in that area because it's weighted greater. So anyway, I'm struggling with the idea that
Okay.
we want people to respond, and unless we tell them that everything is equally weighted, we're telling them we're not going to really tell you what's most important. If everything's important, then tell them that as part of the rubric. There is not one item that is weighted more than all the other items. Great, at least they now know. Put everything in one, spread out your eggs in all the different baskets. And I would wonder if that's a best practice not to have a rubric for these different areas. I would challenge us to find out if in particularly ambulance procurement, if that is a best practice around the country. Not just because it meets some criteria in Sacramento, okay, whatever, but is it best practices in the industry when it comes to this very unique process that we're doing, which, as you've mentioned, is one of the few times we've ever rejected a proposal for procurement. So I think there was some questions about that process.
Okay.
The other thing is relative to, have you identified how this new process that's on the screen is any different from what we went through in the last process, and what changes were made, if any, so that we just don't repeat what we experienced this last go-around? You mentioned that you would have negotiations, and it's right after the interviews, you would then start negotiating with all parties, the first party, the first scoring party, and if that didn't work, you'd go to the next scoring party, and you said you'd continue that until you were able to get the unit hour utilization cost that you were negotiating. Did I hear that right?
You heard right what I said, but you're interpreting it wrong just a little bit, so I'll clarify that for you. We will negotiate with, the district will negotiate, if need be, with the top-ranked proposer first. Staff will come up with a unit hour cost that we can afford, and that's not I'm just overseeing the process, but they will have the information on that. So whatever the district can afford to pay is a number that they're going to come up with, that they're going to try to get to, is my understanding. Something as simple as a $20 difference in a unit hour cost equates to about $2 million over the life of the contract. So you can see that we need to get to, the staff needs to get to a certain price.
Right, but you would then start that negotiation with the top-ranked score.
That's correct.
And if the parties did not agree,
Correct.
that then would be put aside and you'd go to the second ranked.
That's correct.
And the way I understood it is you would just do that process until two things either occurred. We came to an agreement with any of the scored applicants, or the pool was exhausted.
Correct.
Okay, so we do recognize that we could get all the way through the process, not have an agreement to negotiate a unit hour utilization cost, and exhaust the pool.
That could happen.
All right, so the other issue I have is, did you come to any of the directors and ask for any input relative to the criteria that we may be looking for in the ambulance provision piece? And I have a couple of them that I hope is embedded within the asks that Metro would have. They're very, very specific asks that I think we need to have on the table of any of our respondents for the community.
I personally did not. I do not know if the EMS staff did, because I was conversing with the EMS staff. Those are my subject matter experts that I went with. So they may have reached out to directors. That I don't know.
I would, as a director, I would like to be at least approached about a couple of items that constituents have come to me and asked that anybody is eventually selected, will they be willing to do X? And historically, we haven't embedded those within these RPs, because frankly, we haven't had one in quite a while. But I think moving forward, we need to be responsive to that public request to embed those. And I have full faith and confidence in our EMS division. This may be something that maybe nobody that's in that bucket has considered, and I'd like to at least see if we can get it considered in the process before it's released.
It's being developed right now, so I'll get that message to them. So,
okay, thank you. I have others, but I'll do those offline, but thank you very much for your response.
Are there any other questions or comments? The only thing I can see is that perhaps the week of February 17th, we might have to extend that blue box a couple weeks depending on the different outcomes. For 10 days in between, in case we have to go to the second tier negotiations? For all of us to keep in mind, there might have to be an extension of time in that, in between the blue negotiations box and the gray selection presented to board process, to make sure that we have appropriate time to succeed in those parameters that you've set out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Director Saylors?
Yes, I have a question. Why do we need to do this RFP in the first place? Can someone please explain that to me? Why can't our own medics do this?
That I can answer. So.
Chief? The addition of I wouldn't say flex medics, the addition of having surge protection in the system becomes really important when we look at our staffing levels. So would we like to have maybe all fire-based medics that gives us multiple use? Yes. The ability to have the SRP program gives us a recruiting area to bring people into the organization, plus it gives them an opportunity, so there's another level there. With this one here is a perfect example would be 2 weeks ago when the Kincaid fire hit, and that staffing was having challenges to staff across the district. The ability to have surge protection and being able to say, we would like to upstaff, or we would like to be able to have something like the air show where we want additional units, but we don't have the staffing internally. It gives us the options of being able to do those things quite quickly. The surge protection for us, we run them on 12-hour shifts, so we know that we can put them out there during the high utilizer time. And then the other portion of it is, as we talked about, is the cost of them. The units, the ambulance, the equipment, the training, the personnel cost, all of those things, and then we add the flexibility into it, gives us that flexibility back to the district then.
So my understanding is in September, we started running our medics with overtime paramedics. Is that correct?
In
At
September?
Flex cars?
We budget each year for 6 months of 2 flex medics. One of the issues that happened was that we had a number of folks from the SRP program that went into the academy in July. So we had then an academy for the SRP running at the same time because of the hiring, and what we did then was extended our flex medics to make sure we had enough medics on the street. So an example there is that now instead of having 6 months, which we typically start in January and ran them towards the end of the year, we've only have 4 months left in the budget for being able to do that. So all we did was we extended the flex medics until the SRP Academy was done, and we were able to put 4 units on the street then at that time.
So do we know what the unit hour cost is when we run our medics with overtime paramedics on them as flex cars?
Yes.
And what does that cost?
I do not have it in front of me, but I'd be happy to give it to you when we get the numbers for that. We have our cost for our fire-based medics. We have our cost for our single role, overtime that is built into the single role or additional single role units, overtime for our fire-based units. And then obviously we have a contract right now with AMR that has that. And then we have our cost for the flex medics that we put in service.
I think having all of those costs in front of us might help us understand and deal with this situation a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. More information's always good, always good. All right, thank you. Are there any more questions for the gentleman at the podium? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the graphics as well as the verbal presentations. Thank you very much. All right, action item number 2. We have purchase approval. Actually, it will be the only one we have. It's listed as number 2 under action items. Purchase approval, 3 2019 Leader ambulances. And we have Mr. Purcell, our fleet manager, for presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. President Jones, directors, Chief Arms, nice to see you all again. Shay Purcell, the fleet manager. I'm here this evening to ask for your approval to buy 3 more ambulances. These will be the same spec Leader ambulances were purchased in last year's budget. They'll be replacing 3 worn-out units. The purchase will again be made through the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative, which allows us to save a considerable amount of money on the process. It's a government purchasing cooperative. The cost for these 3 vehicles is $630,878.52, and the funds are allocated in the fiscal year 1920 final budget, and staff is recommending that you approve this purchase.
Right, thank you very much. Are questions or comments from Director Gould?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Shay, thanks very much for this number, and I think it's important that the community recognize, just a few weeks ago, we heard somebody talk about what it costs to ride in an ambulance, and there was some concern about that. And I think it's important for the public to look at some of these numbers. These are ambulances that don't, I'm assuming, don't have radio systems in them, aren't equipped with gurneys that are hydraulic based, and all of the things that we need to do to have that ambulance come to their doorstep. These are not $50,000 vans you can pick up down at the Chevy, right?
Correct.
And so I think it's important that we reiterate that we're talking probably, I'm guessing, nearly $300,000 to make an ambulance street ready.
That's pretty close.
So, you know, people wonder why some of these costs are what they're at. We're putting a highly technical piece of apparatus in front of your home. And then it's not a van.
No.
I mean, it might look like one, really fancy one, but it's not. There's a lot more to these ambulances. And then we have 100,000 calls or more a year, much of which are using an ambulance on our really smooth and wonderful roads. Right?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If I could respond?
Please. Absolutely, I won't.
A couple of facts. These ambulances are supposed to last us 6 years, 4 years in primary service and 2 years in reserve.
Oh, shit.
And we're wiping them out in 3 years. Medic 61 did 50,000 miles worth of travel in a single calendar year in their primary unit. So that doesn't count any of the time they were in a reserve when their primary was being serviced. So we're blowing the doors off of these things. Next year, we have enough vehicles in the fleet now that we can start remounting. We currently have 3 rigs that have been remounted because the box is okay, but the power plant and the chassis get smoked out. So starting next year, you'll see me come to you and ask for new ones and to remount other ones. And the cost saves, it's about a third of the cost of buying a new one. So we're trying to find ways to increase the longevity. But yeah, these are
And we're
expensive
getting,
trucks.
Madam Chair, we're getting the use out of these ambulances because we have a top-rated maintenance fleet.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no doubt about it.
Best in the area.
And I'm not, you know, we're good friends, but the reality is we're getting even more usage out of these very expensive tax-funded pieces of equipment. We get that, but it's because we have such an excellent fleet maintenance group that keeps these things rolling like they do. If we didn't have that, I'm sure we'd have way more breakdowns. Our arrival times would be suffering, you know, and so I think it's important for the community to understand that, you know, we're doing some pretty special things given kind of our environment, and certainly your shop is doing a bang-up job of keeping these things, you know, maybe blowing the doors off them isn't really what we want to say, but, you know, we're using them really effectively. And kudos to all of your team that, you know, rarely get a lot of recognition, but I know those men and women over at your shop are really doing a wonderful job to keep our fleet moving. Thank you
Pass it
very
on.
much.
You're very welcome. I'll let them know.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments from fellow directors?
I would go to move staff's recommendation, Madam Chair.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Dr. Sailors.
Aye.
Gold.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Wood. Clark.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
And Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Purcell. Okay, we're going to move on to reports. First thing is the president's report. A few items that I'd like to give kudos to for my fellow directors and fire chief and senior staff. We had a very productive 2x2 meeting with the county late last month, opening a lot of doors, exchanging information, just again, more information, raising awareness levels. Very, very positive, and I continue to get positive feedback from our supervisors on that meeting. So thank you all for everyone who participated in that, as well as we did have our strategic planning workshop this last Saturday. It's almost as I was going to try to make some joke about comparing it to going to the dentist. However, because of the positive, enthusiastic participation from, I'm serious now, with senior staff, directors, and Tim Duncan for the facilitator role, we had a very, very productive, very focused strategic planning workshop, probably one of the best I've ever been to. And I'm really looking forward to our final results when all the goals are written down and formalized for us. So thank you to each and every person who made that terrific effort. That's very, very important. A couple side notes. Director Sailors attended with me the Special District Advisory Council to, Committee, correction, SDAC, to Sacramento County LAFCO. And it's where representatives from the special districts in our county all get together, exchange information, and talk about what's new at LAFCO. It's a very, very productive way. I'm very proud to say that Metro has been a strong leader in this group, and we continue to share amongst ourselves ideas, concerns, challenges, and solutions amongst all the special districts in Sacramento County. That's a very good thing for Metro to be on that leadership role. So, and also thank you for your participation in that, Director Sailors. And finally, just to update, 2 weeks ago, I attended the Cal-LAFCO conference here in Sacramento. And one of the major highlights, everything's good, one of the major highlights was a visit to our newly opened Sacramento Regional Fire Museum over in West Sacramento. A terrific experience. This thing has been in the making for 30 plus years. Now we have a terrific fire museum over in West Sac, Regional Fire Museum. So many rigs that have been housed at a lot of our Metro facilities now have a home, H-O-M-E, and that is just great. I'd like to encourage each and every one of you to pick up the phone, make a reservation, and so make sure we have some docents there can tell you all the stories. Terrific history, 150 years plus from our region. So doors are open. Please come in and check it out. That concludes my comments. Fire Chief's report.
Good evening, directors. First off, on recruitment, we have a single role EMT and paramedic recruitment that'll be open through the end of the month. Captain Shani Cornell was selected to be the EMS day captain. She'll start that job. She's leaving EMS 24. So leaving shift work and coming to a day assignment, she'll start that on the 18th. We assigned 2 captains, Captain Brian Curry and Captain J.D. Flint, on temporary assignments to days. They will be helping and reporting to the training division, and they're working on a tactics and strategy training program. So they'll be putting the program together and then supporting the battalion chiefs and the shift commanders when they roll out that program. Captain Paul Burke retired on November 1st. Paul had 29 years of service. We had a little get-together with him a couple of weeks before. He's excited about his retirement. As I mentioned, we had the chiefs forums. I thought also that the meeting with the county and the 2x2s was a very, very positive meeting, and was surprised that actually after 2 hours, everybody had to stop and we had to shut down the meeting, that it was that positive. On the 30th of last month, we had a labor management meeting, and also one of our captains, Captain Ed Henderson, was recognized by Consumnes Fire, celebrating our community lifesavers. Ed was at a soccer complex, at a soccer game in Elk Grove, and he witnessed a lady go into cardiac arrest. He went over there, got an AED, began treatment. When the Consumnes units showed up, we all worked so well together. He took over the iPad, the information, and just had a great outcome, and they had an award for him on the 30th, and were able to do that. The 30th was also the King's First Responders Night. We had a lot of folks that were down there. I also attended the Pioneer Hook and Ladder grand opening. That was on the Saturday the 2nd, and just a great attendance by folks that are out there, and they really have moved from the apparatus being somewhat hidden to now they're out in the area, in the public, and they were able to get the old alarm system from the city, package it up, move it, and then put it up into a room down there. So a lot of really neat stuff that was going on. And then on November 9th, I guess it was a root canal for all of us. But we did have the annual workshop, and
So specific.
She
did you shut my thing off? No. No. But I thought it was, as you said, it was very well. Tim did a great job of facilitating it, kept it moving, and when he saw that the topic wasn't moving any farther, he would stop the conversation and then put us back on track again. Tim sat down, filled out the the basic spreadsheet and has sent all of that to us already. So we'll have to sit down and look at that and figure out what that's going to look like as we move forward. That's all I have unless you have any questions.
Any questions for the fire chief? All right, and ahead of the game, we have our operations report from Assistant Chief Lozano. Welcome to the podium.
Hey, good evening, Board, Chief Harms. I'll give you your operations brief. I'm Mike Lozano, Assistant Chief, A-Shift Operations Shift Commander. Since our last report, October 24th, we've had 5,903 calls for service. Of those calls for service, 4,337 were between Metro and AMR for medical aids. Of that, 68% of those were transports. In those calls, Medic 101 was our busiest medic with 269 responses. Engine 53 was our busiest engine with 291 responses. We had 17 building fires. I'll give you a couple of incidents that I think really highlight what we've been talking about, not only our responses, capabilities here at Metro, but our teamwork. I think you've heard all night long the teamwork, whether it was for the RFP process or finance putting together their phenomenal reports. But here are a couple on the operations side. On October 30th, we responded to a vegetation fire. Crews responding arrived to find a vehicle into a power pole. Power pole was sheared, power lines were on the ground, and they had started a fire, approximately 1 acre fire. The victims of the vehicle accident had self-extricated, were outside the vehicle at the time. So as Metro arrived, the medic jumps right to work. They start taking care of the patients. The firefighters or the engine companies responding quickly find a way into the field. The dozer goes in, puts a line around the fire. The engine company's going back up the fire. Command calls SMUD. SMUD shuts the power line down. And within probably 30 minutes, we have this thing closed up and tied together with a neat little bow at 3 acres. And so this is just happens every day, but I'm not trying to make light of it. It's a very serious situation, but this is teamwork at its finest. And then again, November 5th, we were alerted to an aircraft major in-flight emergency here at Mather. Charlie Jenkins was the battalion chief at B-14. Tyler Wagaman was the assistant chief on duty, and we had 3 hours of loiter time for this aircraft to burn off fuel. They had an issue with their front landing gear. They were sure that it was unsafe to land on. Well, in those time that we had to set up, Chief Wagaman and Chief Jenkins had command, operations, medical, rescue group, fire control group. They had contingency set up, and so by the time this plane landed, and indeed the front landing gear did collapse, pilot did a phenomenal job keeping it up just in time to set it down as gently as possible. All 5 souls on board were uninjured and came out, but we had this system in place to assist them had that been necessary. So just another one of those great opportunities to highlight what a great job that our operations personnel are doing, and of course the support staff behind it. So that's the end of my report. If you have any questions or comments, I'll take them now.
Are there any questions or comments for Chief Lozano? All right, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we come to the SMFD Firefighters Local 522 report.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, Chief Harms. My name is Mitch Thomas. I'm a firefighter paramedic currently assigned to Truck 106 on A shift, as well as a shift rep on A shift. Vice President Jameson sends his apologies. He won't be able to attend today, obviously. Him and the executive board are at the California Firefighter Joint Apprenticeship Committee Conference. This is a labor management conference where they're discussing the use of CalJack funds, social media use, strengthening peer support, and leadership. One of our members, Holly Gardner, has just returned from Boston, where she was at a women's conference. We look forward to hearing about her experience and also what she learned. We're also proud to have worked with the district and the board of directors to make our sick leave and leave of absence policies more helpful to the membership, especially to new members that have not accrued a lot of time to take off. We've become a very young department, and it seems like every couple weeks we have a notice of a new baby being born. So it's nice to be able to work with the board and the district, and support our new members and their new families. Aside from that, don't forget we had the Dean Baker Crab Feed 2 Saturdays from now, November 23rd in Rancho Cordova. It's a great event, and that's all I have. If there's no questions.
Are there any questions or comments for Shift Representative Thomas? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate
you.
the info. All right, we're going to move to committee and delegate reports. The first one is Executive Committee. I have no report. Moving to Communications Center, JPA, AC Wagaman. Welcome to the podium, sir.
Thank you and good evening, Directors, Chief Harms. Tyler Wagaman, Assistant Chief Operations Shift Commander on the B Shift, but speaking on behalf of the Comm Center Board this evening. The board last met on Tuesday, November 12th, here at the Metro Board Chambers. Not a whole lot of information to report, with the exception of a fantastic presentation that we received from the center's GIS staff. Both Matt Wooden and John Herrera did a great job. They were talking about geospatial stuff. I wish I could get into details, but I'm the wrong guy to speak to that. But it was comforting to know that we have 2 people that are truly experts, and they're in the right spot when it comes to the future of how we respond to calls, how we dispatch to calls. It all revolves around GIS information. So knowing that they're starting to put the package together and that will help talk to the new CAD system down the road, it is certainly a breath of fresh air. So it was a great presentation. I was in awe. And thank you very much, Director Sailors, for seeing you there as well. Our next meeting is going to be on November 26th, 9 o'clock in the morning, here at the Metro Board Chambers. That concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions, comments? Thank you very much. All right, next up, we have California Fire and Rescue Training, JPA, DC Shannon. Welcome to the podium.
Good evening. California Rescue Fire Training, JPA, has not met for some time, but we will be meeting January 16th, 2020, across the hall at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, for the Finance and Audit Committee, announcement that the next meeting will be December 12th, 2019 at 5:30 in these chambers. And now we have Policy Committee report from Director Gould.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. The Policy Committee met this evening and took one action to move the family and medical leave changes to the full board for consideration. Basically, several updates to reflect changes in the law and regulations. And then we also received one presentation item relative to administrative policy revisions to update those policies to reflect the negotiated new contract with our labor bodies. That was sick leave policy, leave of absence policy, and modified duty policies. And I was assured that all of this has been approved and moved forward through our labor groups. And so we will see that family and medical leave materials, I'm assuming, in the next board meeting for full approval. The next meeting is yet to be determined, but I have it on good order and good faith that it'll be in 2020.
Oh, good guess.
That ends my report.
Thank you, Director Gould. All right, we're going to move to board member questions and comments. I'm going to start all the way to my right here with Director Sailors from Division 1.
Thank you, Madam. I just want to say thank you to Amanda Thomas for her wonderful presentation, and congratulations to the finance staff for their awards. And thank you to everyone for Saturday's pleasant time, and it was, I thought it was fun. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really quickly, congratulations to the Finance Committee, our Finance Department. Once again, you rock it. I hope that those accomplishments are put up on our website so that I can see it on my Twitter, Facebook accounts, that is what's current. I think we need to celebrate those achievements on our forward-facing materials. I don't know that enough of the citizenry really appreciate just the transparency and the focus of transparency that this governmental body does. When we think about all of the information we receive about governmental bodies that aren't transparent and all of the problems that that results in. And once again, we just see more and more of the men and women in our organization doing everything they can to get more transparency. And I hope we really shout that from the rooftops in our, like I said, I need to see an update on my Twitter account on that. Thank you for the dental visits on Saturday, to use the chair's analogy. That was not painful at all for me. And I was not under any kind of painkillers. So it was a wonderful experience, and I agree with the chair that I think we came up with some really excellent ideas, and I was grateful that the staff were able to really throw down and share their ideas, because frankly, they're the ones that know what the crap's going on. In addition to that, as we approach the holiday season, and you see a lot of work that's going to continue to be done, I know this organization well enough to know that there are a lot of opportunities for all of us to reach out and connect with those people that are far less blessed than all of us at Metro Fire are. And I hope that each of us looks for that opportunity to take a moment in our time, our busy lives, and do something kind for someone else that's far less blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gould. Director Wood?
Amanda, it's already been said, but congratulations, well done, good job. Mr. Purcell, thank you for your points. We don't get to hear from your division, but without you and the people you have in your division, we would have nothing to get to the doors to help the public. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Clark?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to congratulate, like everyone else, Amanda, Thomas, and the Finance Division for a great job. The awards speak for themselves. Also, I'd like to thank the presenters, Mark Jones, Purchasing Manager, and also Mr. Purcell. I actually enjoyed the strategic planning meeting, so I was going to say it wasn't painful for me either, so I thought it was fun. We got a lot of things done. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Clark. Director Barnes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start off with saying I was impressed that Director Gould has a Twitter account, as he highlighted tonight.
I don't.
But already to the Finance Committee, it's already been said, but again, truly the unsung heroes of what you do. People go out and perform operations, they get media interviews, but you're behind the scenes making everything work, paying the bills, and receiving awards for all the great work. So everybody that part of that Finance Committee, well done. The only thing I just want to say that hasn't been said is just happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We're coming up on the holidays. We won't meet again until December. And again, for everybody that's able to spend time with their family, hug your loved ones a little tighter. You never know what's going to happen. And for those that are going to be out serving and providing us service and first-class service, thank you for that, as we know you're away from your family. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Sheets?
Good evening. I just have a few things. I wanted to congratulate Mr. Burke on his retirement. I'm looking forward to attending the graduation ceremony and the crab feed. It's always a fantastic event. Congratulations to our Finance Division. I'm confident we're going to get more medallions due to the hard work that the whole division does. And thank you, Mr. Jones, for the presentation. I was pleased with that last slide, that it's being kept internally and not using a third party to make our decisions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Sheets. Just 2 items. See you at the Dean Baker Crab Feed, and happy Thanksgiving. We're going to adjourn to closed session. Please don't be here when we come back. Thank you. Thank you all very much. We'll now reconvene to open session. Council Lavra, please report out.
Thank you, Director Jones. The board met in a closed session on item number 1, the claim against a public entity filed by Catherine Nevins. The board took action unanimously to reject that claim and refer the matter to the district's liability carrier. The board also met with respect to item number 2, public employee employment concerning the fire chief's employment. No reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you, sir. I'd like to announce that our next meeting will be December 12th at 6 p.m. in these chambers. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Meeting adjourned.